James Peterson stepped onto the plane, expecting an ordinary flight. But suddenly, a flight attendant blocked his path. "Sorry, sir, that seat is reserved." Confused, he was sent back to economy. Then, the captain's voice echoed through the cabin. "Mr. Peterson, please come to the front." All eyes were on him, and in that moment, he realized nothing about this flight was normal. What happened next will leave you speechless. But let's start from the beginning. It was supposed to be a routine flight from New York to Los Angeles, a journey James Peterson had taken countless times before. But the moment he stepped onto the plane, something felt off. The soft hum of the airport seemed to fade as he walked down the aisle toward business class. He scanned his ticket again, making sure he wasn't mistaken. He had a seat in business class, the same as always. But when he reached the partition, a flight attendant blocked his path. Her smile was polite, but something about it was cold, almost rehearsed. "I'm sorry, sir. This area is reserved for first-class passengers," she said, her voice even but firm. James stopped, puzzled. His eyes darted to the ticket once more, then back to her. "I'm in business class," he said, but the words felt strange on his tongue, like he was already speaking out of turn. She didn't blink. "I'll have to ask you to return to economy," she added, cutting him off. There was no room for debate, no offer to double-check anything. She simply pointed back down the aisle, as if her words were final. James felt a rush of discomfort tighten in his chest. The low murmur of the other passengers began to swell. They were watching, their eyes sharp, some in quiet judgment, others with a strange curiosity. He could feel their gazes following him as he turned, his face flushed with a mixture of confusion and a strange, growing sense of unease. The flight attendant's hand remained at her side, unyielding. She didn't step aside, didn't offer an apology, and didn't even seem to notice the mounting tension in the air. It was as if this moment had been scripted long before he had ever stepped on the plane. As he slowly walked back toward economy, a nagging thought crawled under his skin. He knew he had the right ticket, knew this wasn't a simple mistake. But something in the way the attendant had spoken, something in the coldness of her smile, hinted that there was something far bigger unfolding beneath the surface. He had to figure out what was happening, but first, he had to find out why no one seemed to want him in business class. James walked to economy, his chest tight with anger. The sting of humiliation burned in him, but he kept it hidden. The smile he forced onto his face, masking the fury roiling beneath. He couldn't stop his eyes from darting toward business class, toward the expensive seats and the white faces that seemed to stare down at him, some with barely concealed judgment. The whole experience was suffocating, his mind racing with one unsettling question after another. Was this racism? Was this why he'd been singled out? Every time he passed by someone, their eyes flicked away, as though they were waiting for him to react, to lash out. The pressure in his chest built, but he swallowed it back, telling himself not to make a scene, not to give them the satisfaction. His fingers dug into his palm, fighting the urge to shout, to demand answers. Why was he being treated this way? He had a ticket. He had the right to be there. Yet, here he was, being pushed into a cramped seat in economy, as though he didn't belong anywhere else. The flight took off, the gentle hum of the plane not enough to soothe his growing frustration. The tight rows of seats, the families whispering in hushed tones, the older couples talking softly. It all felt so wrong. He felt trapped, a sense of displacement gnawing at him. Was this his place now? Was this how it was always going to be? And then, the captain's voice came over the intercom, calm and steady, but his words hit James like a sudden jolt of electricity. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have an important announcement. Mr. James Peterson, would you kindly make your way to the front of the plane?" The words hung in the air, chilling and surreal. How did they know his name? He hadn't been announced to the crew, hadn't given anyone his personal details. His blood turned cold, a slow burn of disbelief rising in his chest. This had to be some kind of twisted joke. The eyes of the passengers shifted to him. Whispers swept through the cabin. And then, as if on cue, they parted, giving him a wide berth, their eyes wide with anticipation. A sick feeling twisted in his stomach. Something wasn't right. His fists clenched at his sides as he made his way down the aisle, the weight of all those stairs pressing on his shoulders. What was happening? What had he walked into? When James reached the front, he was greeted by a new flight attendant, this one smiling warmly at him. "Mr. Peterson, the captain would like to speak with you personally." James followed her through the curtain, through the first-class section, his every step filled with questions. What was this all about? He was still seething from the treatment he'd just received, but a new anxiety gripped him too. When he reached the cockpit, the captain was waiting. "Mr. Peterson, please take a seat," the captain said. "I know this has been an unusual experience for you, but let me explain. We've been monitoring the situation, and I want you to know that there was a mistake. We have a seat available for you here in business class. It was our error to ask you to leave." James's anger flared, but he could hardly process the apology. "A mistake?" he repeated. "I've been humiliated in front of everyone." "I'm deeply sorry for what you've experienced," the captain said. "But there's more. I think you deserve more than just an apology." The captain cleared his throat, and a strange silence fell between them. "We're making an announcement to the whole plane. I'll be addressing the issue directly. I believe this needs to be corrected." James sat in stunned silence. The captain stood, then turned to the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen," the captain began, his voice firm but clear, "we've encountered a situation that should never have happened. A passenger with a valid business class ticket was wrongly asked to leave that area. I would like to apologize for the misunderstanding, but this is also a moment for us to reflect on fairness and respect." The flight attendant who had originally told James to leave stepped forward, her face pale, her hands trembling. She was the one who had made the mistake, the one who had humiliated him. She had to face the consequences of her actions now, as everyone on board listened to the announcement. James could feel the eyes of the passengers on him now, but this time, they weren't filled with judgment. They were filled with respect. The moment the captain finished, there was a small, respectful round of applause from the business class section. James, still in disbelief, turned to the captain. "Thank you. I didn't expect this." The captain smiled. "You didn't deserve any of it, Mr. Peterson. Justice, in this case, is about more than just giving you a seat. It's about making sure no one else has to go through what you did." James took a seat in the now empty business class, a quiet satisfaction rising inside him. The injustice had been righted, and with that, so had his dignity.